A while back, I made a video comparing the new Toyota GR86 against the Mazda MX-5 RF. However, it wasn't really one of my best videos because the MX-5 in that one was modified and I didn't really have a whole lot of time with the GR86. But in this video, the Mazda MX-5 is completely stock and I have more time with the Toyota GR86, an entire week actually. So let's try this comparison one more time. Let's go for a drive. The old Toyota GT86 had one major criticism. It was underpowered. But thankfully, Toyota did listen to their customers and their critics and gave this new GR86 more power. It still is a flat 4 boxer engine, but it now displaces 2.4 liters and it produces 228 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. Now that isn't a huge bump in power and torque compared to the last one, but it's much more usable now than the previous one. With the old 86, it felt like as though you needed to rev the engine way past 4,000 RPMs just to get the car going. With this new one, you don't need to do that. In everyday city driving, you barely need to touch 3,000 RPMs to get the car going or to just keep up with traffic. Also, when you're driving down a highway, and let's say you're doing 100 kilometers an hour or about 62 miles an hour, you can actually leave it in 6th gear and just gently roll on the throttle. The engine will pick up and you're already going to be past the slower vehicle ahead of you. This 2.4 liter is what the GT86 should have always had from the very beginning. Well, from the time that Toyota decided to reincarnate the 86 name. With the added power and displacement, fuel economy is still not that bad. It is officially rated for 11.9 liters per 100 kilometers in a city and 8.7 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway. And that is with the manual transmission. If you get the GR86 with the automatic transmission, then those fuel economy numbers improve by almost 1 liter per 100 kilometers in both city and highway driving. And speaking of transmissions, as you may have noticed by now, I am driving the manual version of this car. This 6-speed manual is a great transmission. However, compared to the 6-speed manual in the Mazda MX-5, the first few gears in this transmission feel just a little bit more notchy, like getting the shifter into the first few gears. It takes a little bit more effort than the one in the Mazda MX-5. But still, this is a very, very good transmission. Clutch is also very light for when you're stuck in gridlock traffic like how I am right now, and the bite point is very distinct. For 2022, the Mazda MX-5 only has one update, which I'll get to in a little bit. The engine is still the same one that has been in the car since 2019. It is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, and it produces 181 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. If you find yourself a used MX-5 that is pre-2019, then it's still the same engine, but it produces less power, about 155 horsepower. Although the Mazda MX-5 has less power than the Toyota GR86, it doesn't feel any slower, and that's because this is quite a bit lighter than the Toyota. It only weighs 1,066 kilograms, as this one is equipped with the soft top and the manual transmission. Other versions of the MX-5 are a little bit heavier, namely the RF with the automatic. And just like the Toyota, this engine is more than enough for this little car. Peak power is at 7,000 RPMs and the peak torque is right around the 4,000 mark. In everyday driving situations, you really don't need to rev this engine to get off the line. And again, just like in the Toyota, you can leave the car in 6th gear when you're doing, say, 100 kilometers an hour or about 62 miles an hour, and just gently roll on the throttle and you'll be past the slower car ahead of you. Fuel economy is also not too bad with this MX-5. It is rated for 9 liters per 100 kilometers in a city and 7 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway with this manual transmission. If you go for the automatic, then the city fuel economy remains pretty much the same, but highway fuel economy improves to 6.6 liters per 100 kilometers, which is about 35 miles per gallon. Currently, I am averaging about 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers, and interestingly, that is the exact same amount that I averaged the previous times that I had this car on demo. As I said, you can have this car with an automatic transmission or a 6-speed manual, which is what I have. And this is the best 6-speed manual I have ever driven. You can quote me on that. The throws between gears are on the short side, but they are very smooth and it doesn't feel notchy in any gear. This shifter just wants to get into the next gear and it's so easy to slide it in. However, one thing that I have noticed between this and the Toyota is that there is absolutely no rev hang with the Mazda MX-5. As soon as you clutch in to change a gear, the RPMs drop immediately. In the Toyota, there is a little bit of rev hang at the lower RPMs. As soon as you start really revving the heck out of the engine, then the rev hang goes away. But in everyday driving, you do have rev hang in the Toyota, but not in this Mazda. The 2022 GR86 received a few upgrades over the outgoing model to make the car more responsive. These include a stiffer front sway bar, stiffer springs, and a faster steering rack. These changes give the GR86 a quick reacting front end. As the car goes through a corner, it feels neutral. Of course, if you go into a corner way too fast, the GR86 will induce safe but boring understeer. But if you're gentle with the steering, braking, and throttle applications, the car has just enough grip. However, just like the old 86/FRS, this new one can easily get its back end out. If anything, it's a little bit easier because it has more power and torque. The lighter weight of the Mazda MX-5 makes it even more enjoyable to chuck it through some corners. The steering response is quick and direct. It provides good feedback as to what the front tires are doing. The MX-5 responds well to smooth inputs from the driver, but can be a hooligan's dream toy when you're being more aggressive. It feels playful on winding roads like a small lapdog with an abundance of energy. New for 2022 in the Mazda MX-5 is KPC. KPC stands for Kinetic Posture Control, and it has nothing to do with your posture, but instead the posture of the car as it's going through turns. What the system does is apply a little bit of brake pressure to the inside rear wheel as it's going through corners. The idea is to limit the amount of body roll and in turn maintain cornering traction. However, KPC is tied in with the stability control system, and when you're on a racetrack, you tend to turn that off. So you're not getting the benefit of KPC. Maybe for the 2023 model year, Mazda's engineers can split the two, but for the 2022 model year, if you want KPC and you're on a racetrack, you have to leave stability control on. The system is very, very subtle when you're just driving around town, but it is a little bit more noticeable when you're driving the MX-5 on a twisting mountain road at a faster pace. But like I said, you don't get the benefit of this system if you turn off the stability control. Starting with the ride comfort of the GR86, it is firm, but it's not overly done to the point where it becomes unbearable on city streets. Having said that though, you definitely do want to avoid some of the bigger potholes and road cracks and manhole covers. One thing that really helps with the ride comfort of the GR86 are actually the seats. They smooth off the bumps and the roughness of the bumps as you drive over them. Plus, they hold you in really well when you're driving more enthusiastically around corners. As for noises inside the GR86, it doesn't really have a whole lot of sound insulation. Wind noise is pretty much negligible because all that you're going to hear is either engine noise or tire noise, especially on highways. The tire noise is really, really loud. However, this is not a GT car, and those that are looking to buy this type of vehicle probably already know what they're getting themselves into. This Mazda MX-5 is the GSP, or Club as it's known in the United States, and it comes standard with Bilstein shocks. These dampers are a little bit firmer than the standard shocks that you get in the base trim of the Mazda MX-5, but the ride is still actually pretty good for daily city commuting. Of course, you will definitely want to avoid some of the deeper potholes and the more uneven manhole covers. But you can easily commute to work daily with this car, or you can take long road trips and you'll be just fine. Now looking at the interior of the Toyota GR86, it has a very simple and straightforward design. There's nothing in here to distract you from the job of actually driving. All of the controls are either physical buttons or rotary knobs, like the climate control for example, and it's very simple to use. However, there are a couple of things that are a little bit more annoying in this cabin, but they mostly have to do with practicality. So right here on the center console is a very nice armrest, but if you push this little button, it reveals the cup holders. Thing is, you can't use the front cup holder because if you have arms as long as mine, then every time that you shift, you're gonna smack your drink. So you can really only use the back one. Also, if you drive a bit more enthusiastically and you hit your elbow against the armrest, then you may inadvertently hit the button that opens up the center console. There is also a little cup holder right here in the door panel, but it's mainly just for water bottles, not cups. Because as soon as you open the door and then slam it closed, whatever cup you had in here is going to spill the drink all over the inside. In terms of space in this GR86, I am 6'4" and I have absolutely no complaints. Legroom is just fine and so is headroom. But this being a sports car, most likely you're going to be at the track and you're going to be wearing a helmet. So how much space is there if I put my helmet on while I'm driving? And yes, this is my motorcycle helmet, but it'll suffice. So if I do it up and in my driving position, I actually have enough space for my head. My helmet is actually not touching the headliner, which is good. As for the back seats, well, they're very optimistic. Behind my driving position, nobody's going to sit back there. You might as well just leave it as a space for your helmet. But behind the passenger seat, if you have a shorter person sitting in the front passenger seat and they're a bit more generous with their legroom, then somebody shorter can fit in the back. In the Mazda, the interior is just as simple and as straightforward as the one in the Toyota GR86. All the controls are physical buttons or rotary knobs. The infotainment system is displayed on a 7-inch screen, and this is the old Mazda infotainment system, but it still allows for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it's wired. That is, unless you go for the GT trim, then it becomes wireless Apple CarPlay, but still wired Android Auto. The 7-inch screen is a touchscreen, but only when the car is stationary. Once you start to get moving and you want to change something, then you have to use the rotary knob down here on the center console. It works just fine because the infotainment system was designed with this in mind, but when you're using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, this becomes frustrating. In terms of space, well, obviously this car wasn't designed with someone of my height in mind. Every time that I brake, my knee is touching the dashboard. When I'm just cruising around town, then my knee doesn't touch it, but it still feels really, really close, and I can't get a very comfortable seating position. I feel much more comfortable in the GR86. However, in terms of headroom, with the top off, there's plenty of it. And with the top on, I have maybe a finger's width of space between my head and the roof. But just like the GR86, this is a sports car, which means you're probably going to go to the track. And that means having to wear a helmet. So here we go again with my motorcycle helmet. Just do it up. And of course, with the roof off, no issues whatsoever. But with the roof on, then, oof, the helmet is right up against it, and I'm having a hard time moving my head around. So, yeah, I definitely want to be in the GR86 instead. Feel much more comfortable in that one. In the trunks, it is of course the GR86 that offers more practicality. It has 177 liters of cargo capacity versus just 130 liters of space in the Mazda MX-5. You can also fold down the rear seats in the Toyota for more space. But not to be outdone, the Mazda MX-5 has a few storage compartments for small items. There's a storage bin between the seats, an ever so tiny center console for some loose change, and there are a couple of smaller storage areas behind each seat. So definitely not the most practical car, but Mazda's engineers have made use of every little nook and cranny. Now let's talk a little bit about the price. This 2022 Toyota GR86 starts at a smidge under $31,500 Canadian. For an additional $3,000, you can get the premium trim, which is what this one is. For your money, you get adaptive headlights, blind spot sensors with rear cross traffic alert. You get these fabulous Alcantara and leather trim seats, which are heated, by the way. You get an 8-speaker audio system, these fabulous 18-inch wheels, and this duckbill spoiler. If I forgot anything, I'll say it in voiceover right now. You forgot to mention a couple of things. With the premium trim, you also get aluminum sport pedals with rubber inserts. Also, if you want the GR86 with the automatic transmission, it will cost you an additional $2,400 Canadian. But for that money, you get more than just the automatic. The GR86 also comes equipped with adaptive cruise control, pre-collision system, lane departure warning, sway warning, lead vehicle start alert, and automatic high beams. The 2022 Mazda MX-5 starts at $33,300 Canadian, which is a pretty reasonable price. However, as soon as you start to go up in the trims, that's when things get expensive. This one is the GSP, or Club as it's known in the United States, and it'll cost you $37,300 Canadian. But this one feels like as though it's missing something, like it's incomplete. And that missing piece is the Sport package, which adds BBS wheels, Brembo brakes, and Recaro seats. This package will cost you $4,400 Canadian, and it's pretty much the same price in the United States. But I think that if you're going to get a Mazda MX-5 in this trim, then you have to get the Sport package, because it just goes together like peanut butter and jelly or turn signals and BMW drivers. The only thing is, you're going to be paying over $40,000 Canadian for a little car like this, and that's before fees and taxes and any dealership markups. So the Toyota GR86 definitely has the edge on pricing. For the money, these two cars come similarly equipped. They can both be equipped with heated seats, backup cameras, automatic climate controls, LED headlights, push-button start with keyless entry, and premium audio systems. If you opt for the GT trim of the MX-5, then for the extra money it comes equipped with leather upholstery, satellite navigation, satellite radio, adaptive front headlights, and auto-dimming driver's side mirror. As for how these cars look, well, styling is subjective and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The MX-5 has been stereotyped as being driven by hairdressers or women, but that's just simply not the case anymore. If you're a guy, there is absolutely no shame in driving a great car like this with the top up or down. As for the GR86, it retains some styling cues from the original GT86. It looks like an evolution of the previous generation rather than a revolution. So, Mazda MX-5 or Toyota GR86? Well, as an overall package, the Toyota is definitely better of the two. It's more practical, it's more spacious, it's less expensive, and it'll still put a pretty big smile on your face. So logically, you should be going for the Toyota GR86. However, my heart says to still go for the Mazda. While it's more expensive and less practical than the GR86, this is still the quintessential sports car. It's not about setting lap times or 0 to 60 times or quarter mile times. Cars like these are all about having fun and putting a big smile on your face. And none do it better than this Mazda MX-5. But you know what? We're all winners in this because we have a choice between the Mazda and the Toyota. And it'll be sad to see the day when cars like these become full electric. It'll be like as though part of their soul is getting ripped out. Hopefully that day won't come anytime soon. Anyway, if you want to know more about this Mazda MX-5 or the Toyota GR86, I wrote more detailed reviews of them over on my website. You can find those links in the video description or click on the pop-up banners right up here. One's going to follow after the other one. And as always, I will see you in the next car or truck, or most likely it'll probably be an SUV. Probably an electric SUV with the way that things are going right now. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.